Dear learners, I welcome you all to the course Understanding Human Rights. And in our previous lecture, we discussed about the environmental rights. What are the challenges that human beings are facing on this planet because of the environmental degradation we were discussing, and what are the rights that have been, discussed under the environmental rights that we were trying to discuss. We discussed that there is a lot of blame game that is going on, and because of that, environmental degradation and its manifestation in the form of what we call global warming, climate change, drought, or the floods that we are seeing all over the world. So we have not been able to mitigate the ill effects of global warming and climate change because of the blame game that we find between the countries. We found that there is a north-south divide on the issue of global warming, climate change, and environmental destruction. And the first argument, you will find the historical responsibility that the global south blames the global north for what is called polluting the environment for last 300 years in the post-industrial revolution era. And then the second point that has been highlighted, because you'll find in the developing countries, uh, uh, there is a lot of developmental activity that are going on. Rapid industrialization is also going on. So because of that, these countries are blamed. It means developing countries or the countries of global south are especially blamed for environmental degradation, for deforestation, or for greenhouse gas emission. So when the greenhouse gas emission is, one of the causes responsible for global warming and climate change, ozone depletion, etc. Then here you'll find that the countries of the global south have been pointing out that it is not the per capita greenhouse gas emission that should be taken into account, not the country as a unit. So that is why we discussed that India and China, for example, together they have around 38% of the world population, and this 37-38% of the world population living in two countries only. And this population, when we are talking about, it cannot be compared with the population of Europe and America combined. So therefore the per capita greenhouse gas emission should be taken into account, that India and China, if they are being projected as worst polluters and the greenhouse gas emitters, then what we have to remember that they are also having the 38 to 48% of the world population. So that is why the per capita greenhouse gas emission should be there. And if we compare, then we find that the per capita energy consumption is much lower in the global south than in the global north. So in the global north, there you just see the per capita energy consumption, and then compare with the global south, you will find that people are still not using so much energy. So that is why the energy consumption is also one of the thing that should be taken into account while determining the per capita greenhouse gas emission, etc. So these arguments you'll find, and we discuss that what is needed is that the countries have to rise above parochial national interest, because the global warming, climate change, or the environment is something where international cooperation is needed. Global efforts is needed because it is a global problem. Not the blame game will not work. Otherwise, nobody will be in a position to survive on this planet. So because you see the way planet is heating up, everything will be destroyed. So this is the reason that that argument is always there. The universal environmental rights, you see, when this global warming, climate change, and other environmental hazards are there, so that is why the people have been advocating for certain rights they must be recognized. And the contemporary discourse on environmental rights encompasses a broad spectrum of rights that guarantee what the right to a healthy environment. This foundational right encompasses access to clean air, water, and sanitation, as well as the protection from pollution and environmental degradation. So, this is one right that has been recognized. You'll find many cities are becoming gas chambers, and that's why when the cities are becoming gas chamber, this right to a healthy environment that is being emphasized, and you'll find many judgments by the Supreme Court of India, for example, and at other places you'll find that right to a healthy environment has been linked with the right to life. So it is part of right to life. That right to life cannot be ensured if the people are living in the cities that have turned into gas chambers. The right to information. Individuals and communities have the right to access information about the environmental risks they face, enabling informed decision making and participation in environmental governance. So everyone is a stakeholder all over the world. People, whether rich or poor, uh, all people are a stakeholder because everybody is going to be equally, equally face problem. So that is why the right to information that is being emphasized under universal environmental rights, that individuals and the community have the right to access information about the environmental risk or the hazards they face, enabling informed decision making and participation in environmental governance. The right to participation. Meaningful participation in government in environmental decision making process is crucial for ensuring equitable and sustainable solutions. So, without the participation of the public, it means the state alone cannot do unless the people are, sensitized and they participate in the effort. Because cleanliness is something, right, to have clean environment. It will not be, this dream will not be realized unless all the people get sensitized about their duties to keep their environment and surroundings clean. The right to access to justice. Individuals and communities should have access to effective legal remedies when their environmental rights are violated. You know, this climate litigation, that has become the norm of the day these days, and the right to access to justice. What does it mean? For example, there are communities who have been living in jungles or the forest areas, and they claim that they have been living in complete harmony with nature. They did not destroy the flora and fauna. They did not disturb the ecological balance that were there. But what has happened that because of a lot of developmental work that is going on in various countries, so that is because of the mining and excessive developmental work, or the utilization of the resources that are there in those forest areas. Because of that, the very ecosystem of that area is being destroyed. So under that kind of circumstances, they say that we have been living in complete harmony with nature for centuries, but now this developmental project that is being unleashed by the states, they are responsible for contaminating our water, destroying our flora and fauna, and also disturbing the ecosystem under which they have been living. So this is the reason the right to access to justice becomes very, very important. Protecting environmental rights is necessary for the enjoyment of other human rights. Of course, there is a link between environmental rights and all other rights. For example, social, economic, political, cultural, all rights, they will be meaningless if we are not having a clean environment to live. Because, if the clean environment is not there, it means the right to life, that is the most basic of all the rights, that will be also in danger. So that is why, the we can find that when we are talking about the rights are indivisible, rights are inalienable, it means that all rights are interdependent. And therefore, these days, when environmental degradation has become a reality, and ozone depletion is a reality, when we are finding a lot of environmental hazards all over, so therefore, this protecting environmental rights is necessary for the enjoyment of other human rights. Climate change, biodiversity loss, and environmental pollution pose significant threats to our health, livelihoods, and security. Recognizing and protecting environmental rights is not just a moral imperative but a necessary step towards ensuring a just and sustainable future for all. The point sustainable future is important. So you'll find these rights that we are talking about, they are not threatening our life only, but our future generations as well. So that's why if we want a sustainable future, then the recognizing and protecting environmental right is necessary, and it is not just a moral imperative but a necessary step toward ensuring a just and sustainable future for all. The judicial pronouncement in different countries, including ours, have linked environmental rights to the right to life. And this is quite significant that the ambit of right to life have been expanded to include, environmental rights as well. So right to life doesn't mean that, a person's life shall not be taken without procedure established by law, means death penalty is an exception, or the people are not being killed by the criminals and the dacoits. But you will find environmental rights are also important, and they have been linked with a right to life. So it means that if the cities are turning into gas chambers, then this is also violation of right to life, and therefore the state is held accountable for this. So that is a significant development. The judicial innovation or judicial activism has led to many legislations in our country as well as in other countries of the world. Now we are going to discuss evolution of environmental rights. Environmental rights are deeply rooted in the history of the natural world and the evolving understanding of human environment interactions. So the human and environment interaction, that is important, and it has been there right from the very beginning. It is noted that from time immemorial, humans have been deliberating upon conserving our nature. So, you know, environmental right, it means that conserving our nature have been deliberated upon by the human beings in the different parts of the world. In all these civilizational values, you'll find that conserving nature, conserving water, or trees and plants, they are already mentioned. Virginity of the mountains should be maintained. For example, in many societies that were very much there in Tibet, for example, they were opposing that the developmental activities leading to what is called outraging the virginity of the mountains, that was opposed. Then you'll find in many religious traditions, Jainism, Buddhism, Hinduism, other religious traditions, you'll find they have been also talking about conserving nature, water, etc. All development should be in harmony with nature has been the agreed upon principle of all civilizations. So it means not at the cost of nature. No development should be there at the cost of nature. That you'll find this kind of maxims and also anecdotes and rules, regulations, moral understanding that all development must be in complete harmony with nature. It was only with the beginning of the machine based production that people have started to think about conquering nature rather than living in harmony with nature. So, earlier the people were living in harmony with nature, or it means we can say that people were not having that kind of capability to inflict, that kind of injury that we are seeing today to the nature or natural environment. But, with the beginning of machine based production, means industrial revolution, that people have started to think about conquering nature rather than living in harmony with nature. The perception has changed. Now the people want to conquer nature. When people want to conquer, when the humans want to conquer nature, it means nature is trying to resist, and that is why nature is retaliating. So these environmental disasters, natural calamities, drought and floods, climate change, global warming, that all these are the manifestations of the resistance by nature, because human beings are trying to conquer nature. The Industrial Revolution and other anthropogenic activities are blamed for environmental destruction and eventual ecological imbalance. So, there are maybe many factors responsible for global warming and climate change, but you will find it is industrial evolution and other anthropogenic activities, means human activities. They are responsible for accelerating the pace of heating up of our planet, which is called global warming. So it means, or for greenhouse gas emissions. Uh, so the industrial evolution is blamed, and also other anthropogenic activities, that is human activities. So it is not a natural phenomenon, rather it has been caused, or at least we can safely assume that this acceleration in the pace of global warming is there because of industrial revolution, also because of other anthropogenic or human activities. From the early conservation efforts of the 19th century to the modern environmental movement, the recognition of environmental rights has been a key component in advocating for the protection of our planet. So now, environmental rights, they are linked with the protection of our planet, that save our planet, save our earth, and it cannot be saved unless the right to a clean environment is ensured. Uh, as society continues to grapple with pressing environmental issues, it is crucial to understand the historical context that has shaped our current understanding of environmental rights. So, that this history is important. Then only we can understand the current understanding of environmental rights, the movement that you are seeing, how it has been shaped and guided. While the term environmental rights may be recent, the seeds of this concept have been sown throughout history. Indigenous and traditional communities have long held deep reverence for the environment, weaving its protection into their cultural practices and legal systems. So that is still there, and you will find the best manifestation of this point you can find in our Adivasi communities, tribal population living in the jungle or the forest dwellers. We will find that what kind of discourse they have developed, and in the indigenous and the traditional communities, they have long held deep reverence for the environment, weaving its protection into their cultural practices and legal systems. Trees and plants have been revered and worshipped in India since ancient times. That is there in our country. In India, tulsi, neem, people, and other trees and plants are still, and other plants still enjoy people's care and reverence. You see that these plants and the trees, they are still, in many cases, they are worshipped. So that is why in our tradition you will find this complete harmony with nature. That is something that is deeply rooted in our civilization, that is Indian civilization. India has been among the countries where movements for environmental protection were launched in the early 18th century. So, this awareness we discussed that in the late 1970s, you will find that this started in at the global level. But in our country, this awareness, India has been among the countries where movements for environmental protection were launched in the early 18th century. From the Bishnoi community's sacrifice to protect trees in 1730, you see. It was in 1730 to the Chipko movement's uh, tree hugging protest in the 1970s. Uh, of course, landmark so far as the environmental protection movements are concerned. Local activism has played a crucial role in safeguarding ecosystems and inspiring wider movements. So you'll find that the beauty of this Bishnoi community's sacrifice to protect trees in 1730, and then Chipko movements where women played a very important role in saving trees, and that's why the participation movement made this movement a great movement, and that is one of the most discussed movements all over the world. Mahatma Gandhi's approach to human progress, Gandhian economics, seems to be a solution to the environmental problems. You'll find the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, also emphasized that all development must be in complete harmony with the nature, and that's why you'll find that he was against big industries, mechanization. So that is why these days you'll find environmental activists or due to environmental activism, and also because of also the arms race and the violent conflict that we are seeing, there is a renewed interest in Mahatma Gandhi's thought and his ideas. And here Mahatma Gandhi, the father of our nation, also becomes very relevant so far as the environmental rights or solution to environmental problems are concerned. Mahatma Gandhi opposed the reckless pursuit of industrialization by all states and preached living in harmony with nature. So that was his simple formula that all development, everything must be in complete harmony with nature. He was extremely critical of urbanization, mechanization, and industrialization. So Mahatma Gandhi was extremely critical of all these urbanization, mechanization, and industrialization. And you all know that his Ram Raj, Gandhi wanted self-sufficient, self-reliant villages, cottage industries rather than big industries, mechanization, industrialization, and urbanization. The problem that we are seeing because of urbanization, he had already predicted at that time, and he was saying that it is going to destroy our sustainable future. He was already highlighting at that time when environmental awareness was not very high. He also warned about their disastrous effects on our ecosystem. He famously said that the earth has enough resources for our need, but not for our greed, unquote. This is famous quote of Mahatma Gandhi, where he said that there is nothing like a scarcity of resources if you want to satisfy the needs of everybody on this planet. Every living creature can satisfy the needs, but the greed cannot be satisfied. So, he was trying to criticize a system where maximization of production, maximization of wealth, overutilization of resources, without caring for the natural disaster or without caring for environmental hazards. So he was extremely critical of this, and that is why he said that so far as the needs of the living creatures are concerned, they can be satisfied by the resources that are available on the planet, but the greed cannot be satisfied. So that is why the very system of production, development, and progress that have been adopted by the countries, and that is still continuing, that he was extremely critical of all these. Rise of environmental consciousness. The latter half of the 20th century witnessed a surge in environmental awareness driven by factors like ecological disasters and the helplessness of the people, the nuclear weapons and the arms race between states, natural disasters and calamities, and apathy of the major international players toward environmental degradation. So, all these factors contributed to rise of environmental consciousness all over the world. This led to the creation of organizations like Greenpeace, which seeks to protect biodiversity in all its forms, prevent pollution and abuse of the Earth's ocean, land, air, and fresh water, end all nuclear threats, promote peace, global disarmament, and non-violence, and the Environmental Protection Agency, as well as the establishment of Earth Day in 1970. So you'll find from 1970s onward, there is the rise of consciousness so far as the environmental protection and the environmental degradation is there. These events marked a turning point in global environmental consciousness and paved the way for future environmental activism and legislation. So, beside that, they also played an important role in sensitizing people in the different parts of the world to demand environmental right and environmental protection. After that, you'll find conservation movements were also launched. Organizations like Sierra Club, National Audubon Society, and World Wildlife Fund emerged as advocates for protecting natural habitats and endangered species, leading to the passage of laws like Endangered Species Act and the Clean Air Act, etc. These movements continue to push for sustainable practices and policies to preserve the planet for future generations. So the sustainable practices, sustainable development, you see even in the United Nations it have been included, sustainable development goal. Then conservation movements, after that we find social movements. In addition to conservation movements, social movements also played a crucial role in raising awareness about environmental issues. Grassroots organizations and protests, such as the anti-nuclear movement, the fight against deforestation, and the push for renewable energy sources, brought attention to the need for greater environmental protection and sustainable practices. These efforts have increased public support for policies prioritizing environmental conservation and sustainability. Now we are going to discuss the key milestones in the movement. So first of all, you'll find the 1972, the Stockholm Conference on the Human Environment marked a turning point, issuing the Stockholm Declaration, the first international document recognizing the right to a healthy environment. Very significant. So the Stockholm Conference. Now this conference laid the foundation for future environmental agreement and set the stage for increased global cooperation on environmental issues. Additionally, it highlighted the interconnectedness of environmental protection and human well being, as sparking a shift in mindset towards sustainable development. The formation of the United Nations Environmental Programme, UNEP, that is 1973, it provided a permanent institutional framework for international cooperation on environmental issues. UNEP has adopted various holistic approaches like e ecosystem based management and green economy initiatives to address complex environmental issues and promote sustainable development worldwide. Through its partnerships with governmental organizations, with governments, organizations, and communities, UNEP continues to drive progress towards a more environmentally sustainable future for all. So you see that sustainable future that is being emphasized by UNEP, and this is one of the significant development after the Stockholm Conference, that is the creation of the United Nations Environmental Program. In 1982, you'll find that the World Charter for Nature, adopted by the UN General Assembly, further emphasized the intrinsic value of nature and the need for its protection. United Nations may be criticized for many things failing in its duty to promote and protect human rights, but at the same time, it cannot be denied that United Nations is playing a very important role in sensitizing people in every nook and corner of the world about the environmental threats, and also, sensitizing people to preserve and conserve the nature. So, the World Charter for Nature, adopted by the UN General Assembly, further emphasized the intrinsic value of nature and the need for its protection. This charter serves as a guiding framework for UNEP work in advocating for the conservation and sustainable use of natural resources. By upholding the principle outlined in the World Charter for Nature, UNEP plays a crucial role in promoting global cooperation and action towards environmental preservation. The 1987, you'll find Brundtland Report, Our Common Future, popularized the concept of sustainable development, defining it as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That was very significant, and from then onward, you'll find that the sustainable development or sustainable future has been deeply ingrained in the human consciousness. This report emphasized the importance of balancing economic, social, and environmental factors in decision-making process. It means that now the policy makers are being held responsible for all these things. It laid the foundation for international agreements and policies aimed at achieving sustainable development goals. Now, another significant milestone is the Rio Earth Summit produced Agenda 21, a global blueprint for sustainable development, and the Rio Declaration, reaffirming the right to a healthy environment and principles of environmental justice. These documents set the stage for future discussions and actions on sustainable development at a global level. They highlighted the interconnectedness of economic, social, and environmental issues in achieving long term prosperity for all. The Convention on Biological Diversity entered into force, aiming to conserve biological diversity and promote its sustainable use and equitable sharing of benefits. That was in 1993. And the CBD was a significant step towards addressing the growing threats to biodiversity and recognizing the importance of protecting ecosystem for future generations. It emphasized the need for international cooperation and collaboration in order to effectively address global environmental challenges. Then in 1997, again very very important, this is the Kyoto Protocol is adopted, establishing the first international agreement on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The Kyoto Protocol set binding targets such as reducing emissions of six greenhouse gases, namely carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, sulfur hexafluoride, hydrofluorocarbons, and perfluorocarbons by an average of 5.2 below 1990 levels over the 5-year commitment period for developed countries to reduce their emissions of greenhouse gases marking a crucial milestone in global efforts to combat climate change. So you see that uh, this was for the developed countries, and that's why this is also a realization or acknowledgement of the historical responsibilities of the developed world, that is the global north. 1998, the RS Convention on Access to Information, Public Participation in Decision Making, and Access to Justice in Environmental Matters established principles for public participation in environmental decision making. The convention aimed to promote transparency and accountability in environmental governance, recognizing the importance of involving the public in shaping policies that impact the environment. It also emphasized the need for governments to engage with citizens and stakeholders to ensure sustainable development and protection of natural resources. So, with this, we are going to wind up our lecture today. In the next lecture, we'll continue the discussion on environmental rights, and we'll try to conclude in the next lecture this topic. Thank you very much.